You believe that if you act right, the world will treat you right. You believe that your kindness is an investment, a currency that buys you safety, love, and respect. You have been told since childhood that being good, agreeable, selfless, and accommodating is the ultimate virtue. But Arthur Schopenhauer, the great German pessimist of the 19th century, would look at your exhausted, resentful soul and tell you a hard truth. Your constant attempt to be good is not a virtue. It is a misunderstanding of reality, and it is slowly eating you alive. Schopenhauer argues that the world is not a moral playground designed to reward the righteous. It is a penal colony fueled by a blind, insatiable energy he called the will. When you navigate this brutal terrain by suppressing your own nature to please others, you are not ascending to a higher spiritual plane. You are merely laying yourself down as fuel for the voracious appetites of others. There is a hidden cost to this behavior, a tax on your psyche that leads to burnout, cynicism, and a profound loss of self. Today, we are going to dissect Schopenhauer's philosophy to understand why always trying to be good is a trap, and how you can reclaim your power without losing your humanity. Let's talk about the pain you are likely feeling right now. If you clicked on this video, you are probably the person everyone relies on. You are the listener, the fixer, the one who swallows their own anger to keep the peace. You walk into a room and immediately scan the emotional temperature, adjusting your personality to ensure everyone else is comfortable. You sacrifice your time, your resources, and your emotional bandwidth, secretly hoping that someone will eventually notice and reciprocate. But they rarely do. Instead, you find that the more you give, the more people take. You feel a creeping resentment, a bitterness that sits in your chest like a heavy stone. You wonder why, despite your best efforts to be the good person, you feel so incredibly empty. This is what Schopenhauer would diagnose as the inevitable result of denying the will to live within yourself while failing to recognize it in others. You are suffering from the friction of reality. You are trying to hug a cactus hoping that your warmth will soften its spikes. You feel unseen because you have made yourself invisible in the service of others. You are exhausted because you are fighting against the fundamental current of nature itself. This isn't just a psychological issue, it is a metaphysical error. You are operating from a map of the world that does not match the territory. To understand why your goodness has become a burden, we must dive deep into Schopenhauer's magnum opus, the world as will and representation. Schopenhauer posited that the universe is not governed by reason or a benevolent God. Instead, the fundamental essence of everything, from the gravity pulling rocks down to the desires pulling humans forward, is a blind, striving, irrational force he called the will. The will is hungry. It wants. It strives. It consumes. In humans, this will manifests as endless desire. We want food, we want sex, we want status, we want security. And here is the kicker. The will is inherently selfish. Every living thing is driven by an urge to preserve its own existence and expand its power. When you walk through life trying to be good, you are often operating under the delusion that other people are rational agents who will respond to your kindness with logic and fairness. Schopenhauer destroys this illusion. He tells us that people are driven by their will. When you present yourself as endlessly accommodating, you are not viewed as a saint. You are viewed by the unconscious will of others as a resource to be exploited. Schopenhauer famously described life as a pendulum swinging backward and forward between pain and boredom. When we want something, we feel pain. When we get it, we feel a momentary satisfaction, which is quickly replaced by boredom, leading to new desires and new pain. When you are always the good person, you disrupt this balance in a toxic way. By constantly removing obstacles for others and satisfying their whims, you do not make them happy. You often push them into boredom, where they begin to resent you, or you become the vessel for their pain. You absorb the suffering of the world, thinking it is your duty. Furthermore, Schopenhauer introduced the concept of the Porcupine Dilemma, or Hedgehog's Dilemma. He used a parable of porcupines on a cold winter day. They crowded together to save themselves from freezing, but as they got closer, they felt each other's quills. The pain forced them apart, but the cold drew them back together. They were caught in a cycle of freezing and stabbing until they found a moderate distance. The problem with the chronic people pleaser is that you have removed your quills. You think that by being defenseless, you can get closer to others without hurting them. But human nature requires that distance. Without your quills, your boundaries, your ability to say no, your distinct individuality, you do not create intimacy, you create enmeshment and disrespect. By trying to be good and merging completely with the needs of others, you violate the necessary distance required for mutual respect. You get stabbed and they get bored. Schopenhauer's philosophy is often labeled as pessimistic, but it is actually deeply liberating because it is realistic. He teaches us that the goodness society sells us is often just compliance. True morality for Schopenhauer comes from Mitleid, or compassion, based on the realization that we are all fellow sufferers. However, there is a massive difference between compassion and submission. Compassion is seeing the suffering in another and refraining from adding to it. Submission is lighting yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. Schopenhauer would argue that by destroying your own peace to serve the insatiable will of others, you are adding to the total sum of suffering in the world, not reducing it. So, how do we apply this dark wisdom to our modern lives? How do we stop the cycle of self-sacrifice without becoming cold and heartless? Here are 3 actionable steps derived from Schopenhauer's philosophy to help you regain your balance. First, you must embrace the porcupine strategy. You need to grow your quills back. In practical terms, this means establishing rigid boundaries, not out of malice, but out of necessity. Schopenhauer believed that politeness is the artificial distance we keep to prevent pricking one another. You must learn to say no without explanation. When you set a boundary, you are not being bad. You are establishing the moderate distance required for a sustainable relationship. Understand that when you stop being infinitely available, people will react negatively at first. That is their will screaming because it has lost a resource. Let them scream. Stand firm in your distance. It is the only way to be respected. Second, you must cultivate the fortress of solitude. Schopenhauer was a massive advocate for solitude, stating that a man can be himself only so long as he is alone, and if he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom. The cost of always trying to be good is that you are never alone with yourself. You are always mentally occupied with the perception of others. You must carve out time where you are beholden to no one. In this solitude, you detach from the demands of the social world. You stop performing. This is where you recharge your intellect and your spirit. If you cannot be happy alone, you will always be a slave to the validation of others. Third, practice aesthetic contemplation. Schopenhauer believed the only escape from the tyranny of the will was through art and aesthetic contemplation. When you look at a beautiful painting or listen to music, you stop wanting for a moment. You become a pure observer. Apply this to your relationships. Stop trying to fix people or win them over. Observe them like a tragic play. When someone acts selfishly, do not take it personally. Do not try to be good enough to change them. Step back and observe it as a manifestation of nature, just like a storm or a tiger. This detachment, viewing people as phenomena rather than projects, will save you an immense amount of energy. It allows you to be kind without being entangled. The hidden cost of always trying to be good is the destruction of the very self that makes life worth living. You barter your reality for a fantasy of acceptance. Schopenhauer invites you to stop the trade. He asks you to look at the world with open eyes, to see the sharp quills on the backs of your neighbors, and to respect the quills on your own back. You are not here to be a martyr for the universe's insatiable hunger. You are here to navigate the storm with wisdom. Stop trying to be a saint in a penal colony. Be a porcupine with enough warmth to be kind, but enough distance to be safe. If you found value in this philosophical deep dive, hit the like button and subscribe. We are building a community of thinkers who are ready to face reality, not hide from it. Leave a comment below. Where have you lost your quills, and how will you grow them back? I'll see you in the next video.